member for Notre-Dame de Grâce-Lachine. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise in this House to give all of my support to Motion 270, moved by my colleague from La Salle, Aymar, who's a person who, since she has been elected, has worked incredibly hard on infrastructure. She really has a keen sense of the needs, particularly, again, of the needs of the people in her riding. So Motion 270 is a motion that has been described already to establish stable funding for infrastructure. And there are six parts of this, and I'll give you my comments on each one. The first requires the government to recognize the construction and maintenance of infrastructure in Canadian communities. So we saw in the past that we asked a great deal of the government, and we asked them many, many times if they would provide a new Champlain Bridge. Infrastructure is very important, and it concerns the safety of our citizens. There was a poll done recently in Montreal by a marketing company that said that shortly after part of the Ville-Marie highway crumbled, many people in Montreal were very concerned about driving in the city of Montreal. In the same survey, it said that 1 out of 5 drivers avoided certain routes because they weren't confident in the infrastructure of the roadways. The importance of infrastructure, and we're talking about this is an issue of people's safety. When I take the bus or when I take a car somewhere, I expect that the roads I'm driving on will be safe for me. And that is what we're talking about here. We're asking the government to act in this regard. The second point is to act immediately to deal with aging infrastructure risks in Montreal. We know that there's a great deal of work to be done in this regard. Currently, we are preparing work on the Turcotte interchange, which is causing incredible problems for circulation in the city. And I have the St. Pierre interchange in my riding, which is another one that really needs a lot of repair. It's important infrastructure. Currently, we can't do so. We're waiting to hear how much money we'll get from the government to be able to do that. And it's chaos in my riding. If you leave Lachine, which is 12 kilometers from Montreal, center of Montreal rather, and it takes a long time. It can take hours, and that's because of the infrastructure. Because we can't plan the work in advance, we're seeing this kind of problem that affects a number of people. Infrastructure is a huge economic issue. It will bring spin-offs to Montreal and to other large cities when money is injected into this. People always talk about the economic arguments, but if we don't spend the money, then obviously we're losing money at the same time. The third part asks for a long-term funding agreement with all levels of government, and the fourth says that the government should cooperate with stakeholders to encourage building codes for sustainable building. So this is very important. We need for these new developments to be sustainable, and they need to be built to last. Obviously, I don't have the impression that the government's really working on that at the moment. We had the announcement on October 5th about the Champlain Bridge, but we still don't know what's going to happen. It's not really transparent. We have no idea where we're heading with that. We don't know whether we'll have light rail. We don't know if it will include public transport. We don't have long-term plans in Canada for these kinds of issues. There are one-time contracts that are handed out, and my constituents are asking me, saying, what are we going to have? Will we have a train? Will there be buses on the bridge? It's not transparent at all on the government's behalf. The motion always asks for an indexation of the gas tax fund to the tune of 1 cent per litre. Now, currently, these funds are given to municipalities to help them with infrastructure, but what we're proposing here is that there be an extra 1 cent per litre. The Conservative government decided to reduce the federal tax from 7 to 5%. But of course, this affected the income of municipalities for infrastructure. Also, we know that our population is growing from year to year, and there's nothing currently being done by the government in order to ensure that municipalities receive more funds. Clearly, if the population is growing, more people are on the roads will wear out more quickly, but we don't have the money that goes with this to deal with this situation. And the sixth point is to indeed replace the Champlain Bridge. So this motion was tabled before the announcement on October the 5th. But for the Champlain Bridge, we know there was an announcement, but we don't know when it's going to end. We don't know what is happening with the current bridge. Will it be replaced? Will it be repaired again? It's difficult to get onto it. There's always traffic in Montreal, and we just don't know how to fix this situation. As I said, we don't know what kind of public transport we'll have on the bridge, and I currently have the impression the government doesn't take this seriously. In my riding, there are many significant projects underway. I talked about the Saint-Pierre interchange. After that, we know it'll be Turcot, but we don't know how much time it'll take. We don't know where we're heading. After that, the Mercier Bridge is another one. It's 50% federal. We don't know what's happening on that bridge. One lane is permanently closed. That's causing problems. There's the roundabout in Dorval, which has been under repair for a long time and will remain so for a great deal of time to come. There are complications there. It's a real mess. So the list is really long. I could continue to add to the number of projects that I've already listed, but there is nothing right now, nothing at all. We know in 2014 something will happen. We don't know what to expect, and the government's just not transparent in this regard. They're not transparent insofar as the Champlain Bridge is concerned, and we need all of this now. I don't want to tell my constituents that, look, there's this problem in my riding, but currently I can't do anything about it because the government's not telling me anything. I don't have the tools at hand to deal with this. So my motion, the motion from my colleague from La Salle-Mar, pays particular attention to green and sustainable developments and infrastructure for the future.
There's no point in developing all kinds of infrastructure and just losing it. And I'll give you a striking example of something that was done without thinking of the future. At the Mirabel Airport, they built great infrastructure for a train from downtown Montreal to Mirabel. And that was ill thought out because that airport's not even used anymore for international flights. So they spent millions on a train station that was never used. So what we see with this motion, what we want, is a long-term concrete plan that will guide us in our choice of projects, quality projects. I really don't get the feeling right now that I have much to say about what the government's offering me. I'd also like to relate some really interesting facts. We know that Canadian infrastructure, over 50% of it belongs to the municipalities. So we need to help those municipalities. They need enough money to keep up their infrastructure, so we need to fund that. In 2007, the federal government launched its 7-year approach to infrastructure support in Canada, Building Canada 2007 to 14. The federal government planned $1 billion in base funding and $13.2 billion in various funding under federal agencies. All that money was invested, and yet there's still infrastructure that's in disrepair in my riding and all over the place, and that proves that more money needs to be spent on infrastructure. We need a plan that's going to include the federal, provincial, and municipal levels so everyone works together to solve these problems once and for all. To conclude, I'd like to repeat my support to the member for La Salle-Mar, who's doing an excellent job on this file. I would encourage all members, all my colleagues, to vote in favor of this motion 270 and help all orders of government deal with infrastructure problems. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.